So I've lived in China for about 6 years now. And I know what you're thinking out there. You're sitting there, you're thinking, 6 years. Yeah, he must be crazy by now, right? Well, you might be right about me being a little bit crazy, but I don't think that's from having lived here for so long. But the way living abroad can treat you sometimes, it's not an unreasonable conclusion to come to. Living abroad is just, it can be hard. And living in China especially, I think there's a very unique set of challenges here that can face a would-be expat. I'll just name the most obvious two. First one, of course, is language, considered by a lot of people to be extremely difficult to learn. And the second one is culture. Chinese people can be very welcoming, but you can tell that there's a certain sort of skepticism about so many foreign people coming into their country. So if you're not quite sure about what I'm talking about, allow me to illustrate this for you for a second. Every year, HSBC does something called the Expat Explorer Survey. What this is they poll expatriates from all around the world. They ask them about things like their economic climate, their quality of life, and they take all of these rankings, and this past year turned it into a top 45 list of the best countries for an expat to live in. So I'd like to ask you guys in the audience real quick, where do you think China came in? Okay, we had 10th. Anyone else? First. Very confident. 34th. Yeah. Now that does sound kind of bad, but just let me give you a little bit of context. The US was only 30th. So I guess that's a matter of perspective. So the upside of living in China is that in economics-related things, China scored very high amongst expats. So career progression, entrepreneurship, the ability to save money, and disposable income were all pretty high. That's the good stuff. But the downside was a lot of the stuff outside of work. So overall experience, China was ranked 44th out of 45. For integration, meaning how well you can integrate into the culture, 41st. For work-life balance, 42nd. And overall quality of life, again, 44th. So these things kind of combine and make it a somewhat irresistible place for career-minded people to come and try and push their career forward. But outside of that, being here for a lot of expats seems like it's very harsh. It's just the fact of the matter. When you see people who've lived here for a while, you can kind of see it on their face, that idea that I kind of need to be here, but I'm not necessarily enjoying myself. So, what's the difference between, say, someone like me, I've stuck it out for 6 years, and someone who gets fed up and flees China in the middle of the night like it's Shawshank? I wish I had an easy answer, but I don't, unfortunately. You know, for some of you in the audience who might have been here around as long as I have, I'm sure you've heard the questions from back home. How did you adjust? How do you cope? Blah, blah, is it hard? It goes on. And I kind of give them the same answer that I just gave you. You laughed, thank you. But I see a couple of skeptical faces in the audience. And that's because the shrug is a terrible, terrible answer. But I have done some thinking about this. And I think that the shrug might be one of the secrets to survival as an expatriate. So let's talk about the shrug. What does it mean when you shrug? Well, we're just going to talk about 3 interpretations today. Okay, the first one, I don't know. The second, whatever. And then the third, shrug it off, right? So now, let's take those three things and let's reinterpret them in the context of expat life. Okay? So let's start with the first. I don't know. Okay? What is I don't know, but just an opportunity to learn? Okay? I'm going to tell you a story from one of my first nights in country, one of my first nights in China, 6 years ago. Some coworkers took me out to a restaurant. It's a nice little place. You know, we had hot pot, great communal dish here. And sometime during the meal, a couple of grown Chinese men, I'm going to say 40-ish, were wrestling in the aisles. Like not like a little bit, like full-on WrestleMania, going for it. And I was shocked. I didn't know what to make of that. Because my upbringing in Western culture would have led me to believe that they were in an argument that escalated very, very high. But that wasn't the case. You know what they were arguing about? They were fighting over who got to pay the bill. Yeah, he knows. Okay? In the US, we fight to not pay the bill. So this is just totally outside my experience. It's pretty silly. It's a little bit silly. And of course, not all Chinese people are wrestling each other to give each other their money. But it became my first lesson in two very important Chinese social elements. That being 关系, the relationship you have with another person, and 面子, sometimes translated as face. I like this, call and response. This is good. Otherwise known as your reputation with someone else. And if I hadn't asked someone about that, I'd have just continued under the assumption like, man, Chinese people really like fighting in restaurants, huh? Now, unfortunately, I don't really mix with the Chinese as much as I should, you know. I feel as an expat, it's on me to try and interact, but if the 41st in integration is any indication, you know, you might understand a little bit why it's difficult for me sometimes. But I do, in the absence of that, try and keep an active curiosity about the way the locals think and interact. Because it's very important that you do. If you have no frame of reference for how things work locally, then you're just going to keep thinking that what people are doing around you is weird, or rude, or malicious. And sometimes it's just not that way. So, let's move on to the second. Whatever. And we're back to shrugging. Back to shrugging. You want to shrug with me? No? All right. So, whatever kind of fits my personality pretty well. I'm not super excitable. But some of my more optimistic friends would call this being a yes man. And what this is about being open to new experiences. Another little anecdote from my life a few weeks ago, so now we're up to 2016. I was just at home, nothing to do. A Chinese friend calls me and he says, Tim, do you want to be in a kung fu movie? Yes. So a couple hours later, I was, actually I wore this. And I was a stern American boss in an amateur kung fu movie. That was just one day. But people have little experiences like this all the time if they keep an open mind to them. There are other people here who play in bands, they write books, they moonlight as models, they start clubs and organizations, they discover local art and music, and all kinds of other stuff. The happiest people I know here are the ones who are always shocking their routine with new and different experiences. And I find that the opposite is true as well. So let's move on to the third. The third shrug, shrugging it off, right? Now, at the risk of being cliche, what shrug it off really comes down to is that old Serenity Prayer. Grant me the serenity to deal with the things I can't change, the courage to deal with the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. Okay? And this kind of ties into the first part about understanding the locals. Okay? Because if you don't understand the locals, you can't pick your battles. And if you can't pick your battles, then they all become battles. And what do we call a lot of battles? Thank you. It's a war. And war all the time is just no way to live a good life. So, all that being said, it's very easy for me to just say it to you. Undoubtedly, there are a lot of different factors that will go into a person's success or failure. But in my opinion, as an expat, trying to create a perfect facsimile of your old life is merely a way of setting your expectations sky high. Some places, you might be able to even meet them, but you're still set up for immense amounts of disappointment. Put another way, I think people should just care about where they are and be open-minded enough to discover that place's unique charms. Simple as that. Because no place is really perfect, is it? No. It's really just a matter of perspective. Okay? Maybe you might have seen this is an old optical illusion. If you look at it one way, it's this ugly old woman. If you look at it another, it's this young, beautiful woman. It's the same way. It's all a matter of perspective. My perspective has always been angled towards learning today what I didn't yesterday and finding all the secrets of the place I call home. You know, because there's no value in this great big world in trying to make it revolve around you. You'll just end up disappointed. So my advice to everyone, new expat, old expat, if you're struggling with it, try and open your mind up again. Okay? Because no place is perfect, you don't have to love where you are. All that's required of you is to keep an open mind and have a little tiny thrill of discovery, even if that discovery is something mundane, like, the supermarket has cookies? Okay? All that's required of you is to shrug your shoulders and get going. Thank you.